Welcome to Star Wars News Net Live, and welcome Star Warriors. Yes, I said Star Warriors. I am that cheesy AF. That's how it is. But you know, you have to deal with it because that's how we do it in the LBC or in the galaxy far, far away, whatever you want to say. Either way, I am your host, Paul Herman. I am joined today by the bearded wonder, Brian.
What's going on, guys?
Going on?
Ready to talk some freaking Ahsoka, man?
We are ready to talk some Ahsoka. And last but not least, Mr. T, Tyler.
What is up? Today has been a long day coming for sure.
It's been a long day because today we are going to talk about 30 years, Return of the Jedi. What is it?
From a certain point of view.
From a certain point of view. I'm just kidding. It's an inside joke. All right. No, we're obviously going to be talking about the brand new Ahsoka Disney Plus series. 2 episodes broadcasted a couple days ago, or broadcast release, whatever the hell you want to say it. This is something that I think a lot of us hardcore Star Wars fans have been talking about, been ranting and raving about. I've avoided pretty much every trailer spoiler besides the first trailer they released. And I got a lot to talk about here. There's lots to get into. So people in the chat, hit the like button, comment, but most of all, I want you to leave and get in touch with the live chat. I want to hear what you have to think about the show. If you're just joining us now in the live chat, get in here. I want you to rate the 2 episodes. You know how we do it here on the Star Wars News Net Live. Get it out of 10. It could be 8.5, 8.3, 7.5, 7.9, 2.9, whatever the hell you want. Give me the point system. I want you guys to tell us what your rating is of these 2 episodes. I'll give my ratings. Hello, Justin. And we'll get that ratings. But I just want to start off with, I think that this is from the outset, this series has got, it seems like, a very positive response from us Star Wars fans for the most part. I mean, everyone's gonna love it, but it definitely feels we're in Mando territory, less in Boba territory, less in Obi-Wan territory. At least that's my opinion. Any people in the chat, hit me up, let me know if I'm wrong or right, but that's the general gist of it. I'm curious if you guys think that, but I'm just going to say my thoughts on it really quick. I think Ahsoka, it was incredible. I tempered my expectations, and I was blown away of how great it was. And I loved it. I have some nitpicks, some concerns, but we'll save those for later, because I do think the show is really well done. And I know we'll have a lot to talk about, but although you, Mr. T, you're the young buck here between the 3 of us, I should say. Mr. T, why don't you tell us, do you think, first of all, tell what your thoughts are, which I already know they are, but then I want you to tell me what your purview of what the fandom is kind of saying, and what your thoughts on that kind of before we get into the deep dives, if you will.
Right. So with Star Wars, there's been such heavy discourse for several years now in these. It feels like every take you have to have has to be on one extreme or the other. You either have to absolutely love something, or you make it your personality to hate something. And with
for monetary
Ahsoka,
gain too.
And with Mando, it felt like there was this universal, like, this is fresh, this is new, let's see where it goes, and people had fun going on the adventure. But with Ahsoka, it felt like a perfect balance of critics were like, this is actually pretty good TV. This is what Star Wars feels like, sounds like, looks like. And the audience was, I think, receptive to the fact that this is the kind of Star Wars that hasn't really been around for several years. That, you have Mando, which is, this lighthearted kind of adventure, father-son adventure. Andor is your really gritty kind of, drama, both great in their own respects. But here we have what I feel like is just pure original Star Wars. And I can almost put like my finger on the pulse of kind of how it relates to some of the younger fans. I heard a lot of kids at my school that I teach talk about, being excited for Mando. Obviously, none of them cared about Andor at all. For older people, like, you don't hear anyone saying, I'm going to watch Andor. And then you have some. I was so surprised with how much Ahsoka talk I heard in the class. It was actually pretty surprising. I was expecting Mando to be far more popular. But I had so many students come up to me like, Mr. Bradshaw, you think that Captain Rex is going to show up next week? Like, do you think stuff like this?
Wow.
And people are actually like, there was a lot of kids invested. And I think that from the performances of like Ray Stevenson and was just absolutely amazing. Ivana Zonko was absolutely amazing. Natasha Sabine blew it away. It was great. I would give it an 8.5 out of 10 for both episodes. I liked one a little bit better than two. And I'm trying to like not go 10 out of 10, even though I felt 10 out of 10, just because if I know Dave Filoni and I know the direction his writing's going to take, my mind is going to be blown at some point in this. And I want to be able to be a rating that tops what I am feeling right now.
That's fair. That's fair. You can always say 11. You can always pull a Spinal Tap and say this episode goes to 11. So
that's fair.
That's fair. I knew you were hyped for it, and I think it's telling whether it's not, because nothing's perfect. We all know this. It met the hype level, which is hard. It is a hard thing to do. And I know we've talked. I've gotten to know you a little bit over the last couple of months, and you don't seem like someone who's just everything's the best thing every time you see it. You've been critical of things, so I definitely think that says something from what I'm saying for you. So we'll get back more of your thoughts in a second. Bearded Wonder, Brian. Give me your thoughts, general thoughts, initial impressions of Ahsoka, and then tell me what your viewpoint of this, and a little bit of fan of, if you've seen it. I'm not sure I know you're a busy guy, but yeah, what your finger on the pulse, what you think it might be going on.
So I'm with Tyler. I like the first episode a little bit more than I did the second. But there were things about the second episode that just had me giddy, Chopper being one of them, and seeing him, not really in action, but seeing his personality and his body movements, and it was classic Chopper game. But I'm going to give the first episode, I'm with Tyler, an 8.5, and the second one I'm going to give a 7.5. But I really enjoyed both episodes. I think it was a strong start to the series. To echo what Tyler was saying, it's nice to have this kind of Star Wars again. And we're getting back into like the mystical side of it again.
Yes, thank you.
I love that we're getting back into the mystical non-science kind of stuff. And everybody who's watching this series, every single Star Wars fan watching this series, we're all going to learn something new. We were talking before going live about the new galaxy and everything like that. We're all going to learn something new about Star Wars now, and it's great. I absolutely love it. I'm stoked. My wife watched it with me, and by the end of the episode, she was already drawing out the mural from Rebels at the beginning as a tattoo on her iPad.
Oh, wow.
Tattooed
That's
on her
awesome.
She's drawing the mural with the Loth wolves and everything, and so it was a lot of fun. We both had a lot of fun. I had this stupid drooling grin on my face every time Chopper was front and center on the screen. It's just, I loved it. It was so much fun. So I really liked the kickoff, and now, man, Tuesday can't get here fast enough.
Seriously. By the way, a couple things I want to follow up with. Tuesdays, thank you. I'll take Tuesday over Wednesday any day of the week. Like, Wednesday is just the stupidest day. I'm sorry.
Well, what's funny is last week we were doing the live stream on Thursday night, and Tyler asked, I remember you asking Tyler, do you think they're going to move it up? And I was like, no, unless, there's going to be a spoiler or something. Very next day, they're like, oh yeah, we're doing Tuesdays from now on. And I was like, okay, I was wrong.
It just felt like Disney was, with all the trailers and everything. Yeah. And of course they have no actors and people that even talk about the show. I was like, they're going to do something to try to eventize this even more. And it felt like they had been with all the trailers and promos. And so I'm like, doing a night viewing, it makes it so much more fun because you can plan your day around, getting people together to watch it. You don't have to worry about avoiding spoilers all day long. You know when it's going to be on. It's like when Game of Thrones was on Sunday nights at whatever time. I was like, I know I'm glued into my TV at that time for that show, and it's going to be the same thing for Ahsoka.
Sorry, I have a crying child who's came flying down here. So she, as you can hear, she was like, I just came out of nowhere. So anyway, sorry about that, guys. Welcome to my life. All right. So anyway, no, I think one thing was really cool is that on the Saga Continues, the other Star Wars podcast I'm a part of, they got to go to the one of the events they had, like you said, Tyler. They were eventizing this somehow, and I thought it was really cool. They had like an event in San Francisco, they had an event in Disneyland, and just trying to and they need to do more stuff like that instead of having like these big, like, again, I'm anti-premiere kind of person. I'm just not the biggest premiere. They need to have more stuff like that. Like have more fan events that like get people excited instead of just like exclusive, like, you know, red carpet with like the stars. Like that's cool and that's fine. I'm not an actor person. That's not my thing. I'm all about like, let's have fun together. Kind of. I honestly, I'll take that over meeting an actor any day of the week. I'm sorry, that's me. I want to comment about this. I made a button years ago that said this: keep Star Wars weird, and I've said that since, ironically, season 4 of Rebels, when they had the Loth Wolves and all, which is incredible with Filoni, right? So, yes, Justin, keep Star Wars weird indeed. So, I just wanted to talk about a few things with this, because I think with Ahsoka, I'm going to give the first episode probably a 9.5. I think it's pretty goddamn perfect. I'll give the second episode probably a 8.5. It's like I'm splitting hairs at this point, right?
Right.
I thought both episodes were fantastic. Before we get deep into the story, I just want to say Filoni's writing so far is just really impressive. If anyone, I mean, you can, I'm as biased maybe, but I gotta tell you, I think Filoni is the GOAT besides George Lucas. It's just, there's no, I just can't. I'm sorry. And I think, to me, I've said this since basically Rebels. I've been saying it for a long time. Whatever. Don't put Dave Filoni in charge of Lucasfilm. Just make him in charge of Star Wars storytelling. Mm-hmm. Have Star Wars storytelling go through him and a group of people he chooses to go through, and that have them be the ones that say, make a book about this, make a story about this, yada yada yada. That to me is what should happen, because that's what Feige is essentially. He's a producer, a different role, but Filoni should be, in my opinion, in charge of creative for Star Wars, period. So yeah, I just want to throw it out there. I thought his writing for these episodes are fantastic. I do want to point out too that Steph Green, who did episode 2, which I thought was a great episode, obviously 8.5. She also did my favorite Book of Boba Fett episode 2, which is a phenomenal episode of Book of Boba Fett. And Steph Green right now, in my opinion, is earning her stripes to give her some more Star Wars stuff to do, because those 2 episodes are chef's kiss, man. Like they are so good. I'd hold that Book of Boba Fett episode up against Andor, whatever. The series, no, but that episode is so good. So Steph Green, maybe we need to get her more stuff, man, because she's killing it. She's killing it. So anyway, let's go dive deeper into the story. So it starts off with, and help me with names. It's Baylan and Shin, right?
Yeah. Yes.
Am I correct on this? Okay. We've got Baylan and Shin showing up on a cruiser, and talk about shades of episode 1. Am I wrong on this, guys? So let's dive into these characters. Yeah. So what were y'all thinking about these 2 characters when they first show up here?
You go for it, Brian.
Oh, well, we've seen the trailer and we kind of knew where that scene was going to end up going. But seeing them walk off that ship, with the hooded cloaks and everything, like you said, much like Phantom Menace, it was really cool. And the way they kind of infiltrated that cruiser was, it was clever. It really was. Even with the captain not believing them, he still let them on board, and and then shenanigans ensued, obviously. But right. No, I thought it was a really great intro to the entire series. The entire, I guess you could call it a prison break, even though she wasn't in prison yet. But the entire breakout scene with Morgan Elspeth was awesome. And I think it was a great intro, because as soon as she said Ahsoka Tano has knows, or whatever, and then it boom into the title screen. I thought it was a great segue into the intro for the show, and I thought it was just, this is what we're doing, this is where we're at. It was a great way to establish. How often do you start with the bad guys in a movie? It happens from time to, but how often do you start with the bad guys and seeing what they're doing? And so I thought it was a really great intro, and yeah, no, you're right. I definitely got some Phantom Menace vibes off it. And I know we'll talk about it later, but I got Phantom Menace vibes again. I think, was it the second episode with the probe droids that were coming up to talk to Shin on Lothal? I was getting Phantom Menace vibes again there. So yeah, there was a couple drops in there where I felt it.
You go, Tyler.
Yeah, so I get the in reverse Phantom Menace. Like it's definitely kind of the vibe that it gives off once
Inverse?
they're on the ship. Yeah.
Yeah.
And but for me it screamed A New Hope from the opening scene with the ship flying over. It felt like, when you see the Death Star or the Star Destroyer going over, firing at the Corellian Corvette, and you have just the kind of the way the shot is with the crawl and then the ship slowly going. It literally felt like I'm watching it sucks at Tristan.
I love it.
Mr. Wilson, he always brings his A game on the show.
They've lost Gideon, now they've lost Morgan. They're just not
Mando infiltrated them pretty easily.
Not on it.
Before you go on, Tyler, people in the chat, if you're watching live, go join the live chat. Tell us what you think. Give us your ratings of the episodes, best out of 10, and just give us your thoughts. Tyler, continue, please.
Yeah, and so I get in Star Wars original trilogy starts with the villains so often. We start off with the Corellian Corvette. Yes, R2 and C-3PO are there, but really the opening of that movie is when Darth Vader walks through the doors and you're like, who the heck is this guy? And then you think of Return of the Jedi, it opens up with, Vader's shuttle arriving on a newly constructed, Death Star. And this felt like, these people mean business. They have arrived. Yeah. Balin's character just... Ray Stevenson, it is so sad that Ray Stevenson is not here to get the fanfare that he deserves for this character.
He's fantastic.
Every line he delivers just feels so powerful.
Gravitas, yeah.
Just his charisma just kind of just jumps out. And then Shin, Ivana Sago, she plays perfectly off of that as this apprentice keeps, every time he speaks, she looks directly at him like, all right, she's like taking in every word and then ready to just jump at it. Mm-hmm. And I love how she has a Padawan braid as well.
Yeah.
And
I didn't notice that. God, man. I'm stupid.
And then this is kind of the nerdy thing that I notice is I love it when Star Wars, then they had the music playing and then she gets up and the bridge, and you just hear they're going to the attention level, it just screamed like when they're in the Death Star and they're running around, and then they cut the music briefly, and because they're shooting their blasters at her, they just cut it for just a second, and all you hear is her lightsaber just deflecting the bolts, and then the music comes right back with Balin just absolutely mowing them down. It was a little too kind of on the nose maybe with them taking over. And then last point, but I still loved it. But last point for me is I think that Filoni went over the top with this New Republic like arrogance of we don't really even let them board. We don't need to. I think he went a little over the top with it, but I think it serves a great purpose because we know the New Republic does not last very long. And it's an interesting contrast that the Empire lasts around 30 years and the New Republic also only lasts about 30 years. And it's an arrogance that the New Republic has that isn't so hostile that the Empire has, but it's still this arrogance nonetheless of we defeated the Empire. We don't have anything to worry about anymore. And, they kind of rest on their laurels a little bit. And they fall just the same. And so I thought it was interesting that he was like, we're going to play them up as this whole 2 episodes was about how the New Republic really has no idea what's going on.
Yeah. Well, I think we all, people in the chat, and if you're not watching live, hit a comment up. But is it safe to say this might be one of the best intros maybe in Star Wars anytime? Are we ready?
I don't know. The intro to Revenge of the Sith was pretty good.
How about this? Let's put it in the top 3, 4.
Oh yeah, I'd say that. Yeah.
Would you say?
I'd say it's a big no for me.
No,
on that.
Okay.
On that,
all
just
right.
I think that Phantom Menace kind of can fall apart after the first 15 minutes, but those first 15 minutes, you're in awe of what's happening. You don't know what's going on.
Yeah.
Revenge of the Sith opens amazing. I would say that Return of the Jedi, whenever you see Vader just kind of walking out that has to be up there for me. There's a couple things in I think the first Mando episode, I don't know if the intros necessarily, on their own, if Mando's intro is better, but I think just the fact that we get the first you're watching the first iteration of Star Wars live action television. and it's this gunslinger
Hold your tongue,
guy.
sir.
I don't know.
Don't you dare dismiss those Ewok films, sir. Don't you dare.
They're in the trash.
They're not. I'm gonna make
Mr.
T. I'm gonna make you. I'm gonna make you watch Battle for Endor. Don't make me go over there.
Don't make me watch it again.
Whoa! We got beef now. All right, so I don't. It might be up there for me, Brian. I don't know. I have to watch everything again, but I thought this was one of the strongest out the gate in anything Star Wars I'd watched in a long time, and it was handled so beautifully, and it just felt like Star Wars. It felt familiar. It felt familiar, and there's I have a lot to say about this too. We're gonna go a little bit longer today, probably, so everyone just know that too. It felt familiar, and I think that's the thing that makes you, I think, accept these characters, these brand new characters, is that they're Jedi, and that's really rad, but there's a sense of familiarity with them that it's very natural, and that is something from, I think, that people just don't give Filoni enough credit for, is he knows how to usher in these different ideas and have us accept it, because he's gone through the good and the bad with us. He's already given us Ahsoka, and everyone wanted to throw her out the gate, 15, 20 years ago, whatever the hell it was. He's already gone through the good and all the bad. So he knows how to, at this point in his career, he knows how to bring characters in and make us feel and accept them, because he's gone through it with George, and now with Disney, and now with the fans. He just knows. And I think it just really shows you he knows how to make us attach to these people, because they are definitely the standout characters. They're my favorite characters of the show so far. As far as, just I was not expecting to be drawn to them so much already. And it sucks, because we've talked about Ray Stevenson passing away, and it sucks, because the gravitas that he has in this is, I want to emphasize this too, because there's a moment when Morgan, which I want to talk, we're going to give everyone their due, but I don't want to get too deep in her, but she makes a comment when she's like, you got to kill Ahsoka, right? And she's like, Ahsoka Tano, you got to kill her. And I forgot what she says exactly, but basically she's like, oh, you look really sad.
It's like feeling sentimental, basically.
Yeah, sentimental. And he's like, well, there's not very many of us left. And I thought it was a really interesting comment, the way he says it. There's a sense of bummer. And then when she's like, are being sentimental, and he just goes, truth. And I was like, damn, kills me. It kills me every time. I've heard it, seen it twice now, and it killed me both times. Every time he says it, I'm like, damn. Because there's a sense, you don't really know where this guy's going, because he's like, he's not scared of her or Thrawn, right? But why is he helping her? He's not just a simple mercenary. So there's something here that's very intriguing about this, and I'm just like, man, Filoni, he has crafted a great character, and man, his henchman lady or Padawan, whatever, Shin, man, she's already got my attention, and she's just there is something very fascinating, and really is, to me, the character is probably not as interesting as the way the actress is playing her, to be quite honest. I think there's something about, there's electricity of this craziness that she has bottled up with not blinking or whatever. It's great. So anyway, before we move on, I wanted to just kind of say my piece. Anyone in the chat, go ahead and say your piece on these characters. Anyone else want to say anything else before we move on?
You're talking about how, they're stealing the show. I think Sabine stole a lot of the show in the first couple of episodes too. I think she stood out quite a bit from her intro. I mean, from, the whole Top Gun feel, where she's on the bike and she's hauling, down the Lethal Highway, and the E-Wing comes up next to her. It was very Top Gun feeling. And I thought, yes. And I thought that was an awesome intro to her. Her, the way the inflection in her voice and everything just screams Sabine. My wife's in love with her. She said, if she was in Star Wars, she would be Sabine, because she loves Mandalorian. She loves the Darksaber. She loves art, and she loves cats. And so we didn't know Sabine was a crazy cat lady, but apparently she's trying to be. And, I think she was a showstopper, honestly, in both episodes. I think she really carried quite a bit of it.
All right.
I would
go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I was going to say, I 100% agree. Natasha kind of stole the show for me as Sabine. Perfect casting. You hear her, You're like, that is Sabine, from the mannerisms to the way, just her voice, the look. They did a great job. The Balin thing for me, he feels like there's like this essence of Count Dooku. I feel like it's there. There is this, I have this, there's still like, to some degree, before things got towards the end, but there's this chivalry and honor that exists.
Yes.
Like, and when you watch like Attack of the Clones and you see him talking with Obi-Wan, you could feel that. And then even in animation, there's that whenever, Yaddle is talking to him in Tales of Jedi, and he turns and he's like, I does not want to kill her, does not want to fight her, but he just has to. It feels like with Ray Stevenson's character, with Balin, it's something, has happened. He's lost his way as the Jedi he used to be, and he's after something, and he has to achieve that goal, but there is still, honor in that. He's not, and that's what I think makes him so compelling, because I don't even think Shin really understands that level of chivalry and honor that he has. I think she's, just kind of going to ruthlessly carry out what he wants, because he says, when he expresses that he has doubts about Ahsoka turning up at the end, and, Morgan Elsbeth's like, you have like doubts, Balin? You see Shin just immediately turn, like, just turns towards him like, you have, like, should I have doubts? Like, it's just great.
Genius.
He's
Genius.
So good.
So let's piggyback off this Sabine. Well, I guess we're saving Ahsoka, I guess, for, good. We'll get to Ahsoka here in a second, but I want to transition to, because it's a great, the whole Ahsoka thing will play itself out, because I have a pitch to give everybody. I've already given the panel here, but let's talk about Sabine. Brian, you've talked about, you love the character, and Mr. T, you guys both love this character. I'm gonna probably go be a loner on this one. Didn't love Sabine right off the bat. I'll be honest. It took the second episode for me to kind of get more on board, to be honest. I'm just being 100% real. I always keep it real. You guys all know this. I think I think the actress is not necessarily all her fault, maybe, but she sticks out more to me as not as strong as Hera and Ahsoka, when you have Elizabeth Winstead and Rosario Dawson. She just doesn't come across as strong to me. Maybe I don't know what it is, but I definitely feel episode 2 was better. I'm not sure if Filoni maybe maybe more of, he's like a George Lucas. It's not as strong as a character director. Or actor, I should say. I don't know. I have no idea. I don't think she was bad, but there were some moments that she kind of stuck out to me that just didn't really register. So I don't love the Sabine stuff. There's a lot of Sabine story we're going to get into, but I didn't love it as much. People in the chat, am I crazy? Is Sabine like this a runaway hit? I don't know. You guys seem to love her more than me. So if anyone want to add more Sabine stuff, let's go jump on that now.
I just thought she, from the opening intro with the Star Wars kind of punk rock music, she goes flying on the speeder underneath, just reckless, abandoned, full Mandalorian, full tilt. I absolutely agree with MB Wilson. You're nuts. You're crazy. If I had to pick one person other than Ray Stevenson that captivated me the most, it was 100% Sabine. I just want to. I was so curious, because going into the show, I was way more focused on, I want to see Ahsoka. I want to know what these, bad guys are up to. After the first 2 episodes, I want to know every little bit, that went on with Sabine during her time with Ahsoka. After that time with Ahsoka, I want to know, like, what's going on in her head, because she clearly feels like she's at least settled down and found a home on Lothal because of her. I want to talk about this later when we talk about Ahsoka, but the whole... she is asking Ahsoka, have you found a home yet? Like, are you just still doing the same old? And she seems pretty content, at least with life on Lothal. Definitely restless, but she seems to have found herself a little bit to some degree. Not necessarily in her training, but just, in who she is. And I just felt like when I see this character, like, just that image right there with the lightsaber, Oh my goodness, Natasha did a great job. So I am against you on this, Paul. I'm sorry.
It's okay. It's okay. Listen, I liked her more the second go around through. I liked her more. It just the first time I saw her, it was a little abrasive for me. I don't know how I explain it any more different than that. But I'm not saying it's all bad. It's not saying it's all bad, but it's a little different. It's a little different. But I will say this. I do think Sabine. We'll get into the more story aspects here because again, like I said before, I stayed away from spoilers completely. And I had no idea that freaking Sabine Wren was going to be a freaking Padawan to the one Ahsoka Tano. And that was, whoa, that surprised me. That 100% surprised me completely. And I know this was revealed in a trailer. Is that right, guys? I avoid all the trailers after the second. Okay. Did I avoided that? Does that surprise anybody? Is that am I crazy on this one too? That just took me completely by surprise. Anybody?
Go ahead.
It surprised me because I wasn't sure where they're going with this, but I do kind of love the whole, to me, and I'm a big Last Jedi fan, so it almost even felt like this whole, what, anyone in the galaxy can be a Jedi.
Don't do that to me. Don't do that to me.
It felt like that, and I think Ahsoka represents the best of the Jedi and who they're supposed to be, and she sees so much of these Jedi-like qualities in Sabine, and I think there's this messaging behind this that to embody what a Jedi is, you don't necessarily have to be this, incredible force sensitive being to embody who the Jedi are at their core. Now, is Sabine ever going to be a Jedi in the traditional sense? She's not. But like Ahsoka said earlier in the one of the episodes, there are so few left in the galaxy who can wield the Force. And if there's so few left that can wield the Force, we don't really know where they're at or who they are, even, the children. How else are we going to, build back up, not necessarily build back up the Order, but, kind of put together these heroes, these peacemakers, peacekeepers, to uphold the Jedi ideology that really should be at the forefront of Star Wars. It has to be, through the traditional Force wielding sense. I think it's a little weird. I'm not saying that I'm fully on board and comfortable with it, but I'm okay to see where this plays out. And I think it's something interesting that people haven't necessarily thought of before in the traditional sense. And I'm all about Star Wars giving me something new. Give me something new, give me something I haven't thought of. And you know what? If it ends up being a good idea, I'll roll with it.
Brian, before you jump in, I just want a couple things. I just want to say real quick. I really don't want to bash on Last Jedi here, but I want to say, and I don't think Dave Filoni is saying this. I don't think you're saying this either, but maybe I'm wrong. But we can disagree if you are saying this. But I do think that the emphasis, one of the I think the problems of Last Jedi is that anyone can be a Jedi. I don't think that should be a case at all, because if everyone's special, then no one's special. And to me, it devalues, I think, what a Jedi is. And I think that's reality. Some people are born to play basketball and are amazing at basketball. And I love basketball. I love basketball in high school. I could never play it. I could play it, but I sucked. I just wasn't very good or whatever, right? People have strengths and weaknesses in different things. And I don't want it to be, this is just my opinion. Doesn't have to be what the reality or what you or anyone else out there. But for me personally, I just do not want that. But I will say this, I didn't get that impression with Sabine personally. I didn't get that idea. So I don't think that's what they're going with it. I hope that's not where they're going with it. But I will say I'm with you that I'm with this journey at this point. And I have a lot of follow-up questions, but I want to give it to Brian here in a second. But I'm with this journey. I'm going to go with it because of one reason. The Darksaber. When she's training with Kanan, she ends up being able to wield the Darksaber, right? Well, that does show some kind of force intuition, if you will, because look of Mandalorian. He could barely wield it, But if Bo-Katan takes up, it's like, you know, like it's more. And I know like the armorer was kind of trying to explain a little bit that to Din, excuse me. But I think it's mostly because I think there's a Force aspect with it, and that's what I'm not like, this can't be real. Like I'm like, all right, I can jump on this Force thing. Brian, please continue.
No, when Kanan's training Sabine and Rebels, and you know he's got her and Ezra training with sticks instead of lightsabers at one point.
Yeah,
he's talking to Hera over the comm, you know, and she's telling him, you know, you didn't have Ezra start with a stick, you know, like what's going on, and it is because she doesn't have the Force. And Kanan says no. He says the Force flows through all living things. It's not just, you know, certain people. It flows through everybody. He said, you know, and she said, is it because she's a Mandalorian? He said, no, I think she has some kind of block. And, you know, we don't know what happened. Those are the exact words Kanan used. And I don't think, you know, maybe something when she started training with Ahsoka, maybe that block started to break a little bit. And maybe she is starting to get into it a little bit. So, you know, I had that pointed out to me yesterday.
That's good.
Like, well, you know, I forgot about that part of the conversation. So, you know, with Kanan saying, you know, the Force flows through all living things. Yeah, I think, you know, to a degree, I don't want to say anybody can just start doing leaps around, you know, jump around with a lightsaber.
Yeah, I don't want to get that. I want to get crazy here.
I think there's who said the word spectrum? Somebody in the comments.
It was Mr. Wilson. Yeah, Mr. Wilson. He's killing it.
In the spectrum, and I completely agree with that. You know, it's something that I think everybody can touch. I think most people can't, you know, just because they don't have the discipline or even the mentality to want to do it. And you know, there is a certain level of talent that's there also. I mean, anybody can sing, but can you sing well? You know what I mean? And so,
right.
You know, the more talent you have, the better you can sing. So I think there's something there for Sabine. I don't think she's going to end up being, you know, Grandmaster Sabine Wren, you know, of you know, whatever. I don't think that's going to happen, but yeah, I think there's something there to it. I mean, she handled herself pretty well against Shin there for the first couple of minutes until, you know, she got shish kebabbed for some weird reason. But, you know,
and we will address that, by the way, people. We will address the chest burst, if you will. But
she handled herself pretty well there for a minute, especially for being rusty, not having picked up the saber for how long, you know. So I think she handled herself pretty well. I think there's something there.
I love this conversation because I do think that I like the idea of it being on a spectrum too, because as long as it's established, because I don't want to bring back, you know, my girl Rey Skywalker over here, but like, I'm just going to say, you have to have some kind of idea that like some people are just stronger and more powerful. And like, not everyone can just work their way up to being like to Rey level or Luke level or Kylo level, whatever. Right. There has to be, that's the whole point of the midichlorian count. But I do like the idea of the Force, like a Chirrut. Like I think Mr. Wilson again brought the Chirrut thing. Chirrut he's worked at it so much over time that he has some connectivity and able to wield it in some way, but it's not going to be as strong as someone who's a natural ability. And I think that whole spectrum that being on the spectrum is interesting, especially I think Mr. Wilson also said during this timeline where the Force has kind of been out, right? So there's lots of great stuff here. I think Sabine represents. I do think she's a naturally Force gifted person, and I think I accept that. It just I was not anticipating that. Mr. T, I have a big thing I want to talk about with Ahsoka and Sabine here in a second. I want to give it to you guys first.
Before you do, let me ask a question real quick.
Yeah,
about the Force sensitivity thing with Sabine. At the end of Rebels, right? The only thing Ezra kept telling Sabine was, "I'm counting on you. I'm counting on you." And she didn't know what he was talking about. And then even when she's looking at the recording of him in Ahsoka, you know, and he's talking about how much he's counting on her and everything like that. Do you think Ezra may have sensed her ability to possibly use the Force, and that's why he left his lightsaber with Chopper? And you know,
well said.
Is that possible?
Mr. T, what do you think?
So, two things. I would be shocked if Sabine is Force sensitive in the traditional Jedi sense. I think we have seen plenty of characters in Star Wars aware of the Force, feeling the Force, but they're not necessarily Force grabbing objects. I think the best thing I could think of to describe that would be Maz Kanata in The Force Awakens, when she grabs like Rey's hand and she's like, the Force is all around us, and she's just like close your eyes, take a deep breath, like feel it, like it's there. But she's, you know, she says she's no Jedi, but she knows the Force. I think that I would be shocked if Sabine is Force sensitive, but that doesn't mean that she can't have, you know, this understanding of the Force itself.
You're crazy.
I'm crazy.
All right, well, Mr. T, how about this? We'll put a bet.
I have one more thing too, and then I'll take this bet.
Yeah. All right.
Back to the whole anyone can be a Jedi thing. I think that I stand by that comment, but I will say that similarly to what Ahsoka said, she goes, you know, nothing about being a Jedi is easy. Just because, you know, anyone could do this, but they're not necessarily meant and able to handle that lifestyle. They're not able to uphold those ideals. The Jedi themselves weren't able to uphold the, you know, ideology that they had.
Yeah.
And I think that Sabine, is she able to start Force grabbing, jumping around, doing the things that we think of a Jedi should do? I think that the term Jedi in many people's respects has become, oh, that's the person that can do the crazy flips and do the stuff with their lightsabers. But if you look at, you know, High Republic or some of the real Jedi masters that are really centered in their teachings, they literally are talking about, well, you know, I'm just like a keeper of the peace. I'm someone that believes in balance. I try to consistently find that balance within myself. And they are just kind of attuned to the Force around them. And the rest is kind of just the icing on the cake. Because I agree with you. If everyone's special, no one's special. But I think that the lesson is that innate specialness is within everyone. It's just not everyone's going to be able to tap into that and live out what they need to. I don't think of Sabine as Force sensitive. I don't think she ever will be. I think that Ezra talking in that is because I think Ezra just has a different relationship with Sabine than he does with the other members of the Ghost crew.
Like my sister. Okay, all right.
Which I don't think he feels that way. I still think he has.
Well, of course he does. Sure. Yeah. Come on. Yeah.
That was fun.
Okay, hold on. So I think it's funny. We definitely are disagreeing, but we're almost agreeing in different. It's weird how we're almost there. Here's my bet, and this is why I'm gonna say you're wrong, and we're gonna take this bet. I'm not sure what we're gonna bet, but we'll figure something out. I'll do something stupid on Twitter for you, or X, whatever the hell it's called now, for you, Tyler. But I'm gonna take this right now. I think it is 100% Sabine is Force sensitive to a traditional Jedi sense. I'm gonna say that you're against that, correct?
I hope, pray that I am right.
I think you're wrong because everything that we've had with Ahsoka, she's like she's my Padawan, and she stopped training, or she stopped training her. So there has been a stoppage. So she hasn't gotten that far. So that's why I'm like wondering. I think that's where again, I could be wrong, but I think that's where I'm gonna grab onto my rightness.
Padawan. She did do that.
So I'm just saying.
Padawan, she's teaching her. She's trying to show her. I mean, she was around Kanan for years, and Kanan never once was like, "Oh, there's that Force." But it took him 2 seconds to notice that with Ezra. Like he could just feel that presence that Ezra had right away, and I think that if Dave Filoni, I just have this hard time thinking that he's had this grand plan for Sabine to be Force sensitive for all these years, and suddenly he's gonna spring that on us. Like there is a learned skill with wielding the Force, but to me, I view that more as this is like she would have had some sort of natural level of attuning to that at a young age that she could have identified with. Just something like that, because you see, like the younglings are sitting there, 4 years old, just floating things with their hands, but they don't know anything about the Force. They feel that
though he was a chosen one,
but he was flying pod racers.
The dude was doing
right.
No other human can do it.
Yeah, but hold on. Sabine's like what 18 years old, 16 years old, and she's holding the freaking darksaber like nobody's business. All of a sudden, after wielding sticks. And then Mando can barely wield it, and he's like a grown man. I mean, come on, let's all I'm saying. We'll leave it there.
Sabine made the comment during that training too. She said it feels heavy, and he said it's not so much a blade, it's more of a current. You have to direct it. So Kanan taught Sabine how to actually, operate it, wield it, or whatever you want to say.
But even after even after the armorer told Din how to do it, he couldn't do it. He still was like, ugh. I mean, I'm just saying.
I don't think he ever wanted to.
Yeah, he never wanted to.
Because if we're gonna attribute that, like Bo-Katan's wielding it like no one's business. Are we gonna sit here and say that Bo-Katan suddenly is gonna start grabbing it too?
And no. I'm gonna say. Right, hold on.
You're the same person after Rebels, man. She had it. Remember? Sabine gave it to her in Rebels, so she'd had it at one point.
But she's like this, like holding up, like, no, like I got this. Like, listen, I'm just gonna say, if anyone can be trained to be force sensitive, there's no reason why Bo-Katan can't be force sensitive. Then there's no. If we're gonna go that route,
there's plenty of people wield lightsabers in Star Wars that have no force sensitivity.
Yeah, Grievous did it. Yeah, but Han did it when he was cutting the tauntaun open.
But also Han was like, and then Grievous is a robot. So I mean, anyway. This I love. By the way, I love this conversation. This is a fantastic conversation. We've gone like almost a whole hour. Wait.
Perfect example. Here's a perfect example, Paul, from your favorite Star Wars movie, The Rise of Skywalker. Finn. Okay. He was not trained. He had some force sensitivity.
He's force sensitive. Yeah, he's force sensitive.
But he also, before he had any kind of training whatsoever, he was using a lightsaber to fight a stormtrooper in The Force Awakens. First time he'd ever touched a lightsaber, he activated Luke's lightsaber, and then there he goes. He went to town on it. Yeah, he got his butt kicked, but he didn't have a hard time swinging it around or anything. Han Solo,
he was force sensitive. He was force sensitive because remember he sensed it like at the very beginning of the movie. Remember,
but it wasn't really manifesting yet though.
It was. He was manifesting it. Like I interpret as Finn having it because even like Finn at that point, to me. The force was there, and that's why he senses at the very beginning. That's why he's able to like kind of get out of his brainwashedness because he's got the force. See,
I think the force can impact people without them necessarily being force sensitive. Because would you say like Jaina and all of those other stormtroopers are force sensitive because they had that what they told Finn? It's like there was a feeling that we had to let down our weapons, but I don't think that means they're everyone's force sensitive. I think it's. The force is able to, people can feel it without necessarily being like hyper.
No, I agree. I agree. But I think to my point, I think that helped him because he's able to get out completely. Whereas I think to me, like the way it's filmed, I interpret Finn as having force. I always thought that. To be honest, especially to my point, by the time he gets the lightsaber and he actually can take it, he can take on Kylo Ren and actually hits him in the shoulder. To me, only a force sensitive person could do that because any Joe Schmo could grab a lightsaber and try to hit him. That to me, that's why I never liked the fact. I don't want to bring Last Jedi into it, but regardless, he's force sensitive. He should hold a lightsaber. It gives more credence to the fact that he's able to injure Kylo Ren. We've gone almost a whole hour without talking about Ahsoka, so I'm gonna have a bridge. Because I got a lot to say. We're gonna go longer. I hope, Mr. T. I know it's late over there for you, so I hope it's okay.
I'm fired up now.
I know. We got this. I love these conversations. I want people to know this. That look at that. We have 2 people ganging up on me, by the way, and there's no defensiveness. I'm not getting angry. This is a fun. No, but seriously, this is the whole point of this live stream is to have people disagree and come together and know we can agree to disagree. And see what happens. And this is what makes it fun, not yelling at each other saying you're this or that or whatever. So that's why I say I appreciate both you guys for being cool about it, but you're both wrong. Anyway, but I want to say I have a bridge. I actually have a question for both of you. My question is, do you think the ending of Rebels is been retconned or is it a different ending than we thought? Because with now this whole reveal of, all of a sudden, I'm a Jedi now, guys. Guess what? That's right. I got a lightsaber. Well, okay. Well, does that mean this now is her being trained by Ahsoka?
Oh, I don't.
Rather than it all of a sudden this be the same thing.
They've talked about details in canon before, and the way it was said was like Han and Greedo, right? Going into the booth on, you know, in Mos Eisley. You know, everybody's arguing about who shot first. The canon aspect of that is 2 people went into that booth, 1 walked out. That's what's canon. The rest of it is all from a certain point of view. Details are fuzzy depending on.
I've said it from the beginning too.
Yeah, right.
I'm with
so I don't
you.
necessarily think there's a retcon. I don't think that. I mean, Sabine putting her helmet on, you know, in the animated and not having it on in the live action, I don't think that amounts to crap. But
I agree.
I don't know, man, because Dave Filoni in the staff thing, I don't know why he gave her a staff in Rebels. That's the only thing that's kind of throwing a monkey wrench in this. Dave Filoni thinks, you know, 5 steps ahead of everybody else. Think about what he did with Ahsoka and the World Between Worlds. How in season 2 we saw, you know, what we didn't see, what happened with Ahsoka and Vader, and then in season 4 we go back and actually see what happened. You know, so he had that planned out. So I don't know if I want to put it past him to plant something and think about it that far down the line, but I don't know, man. I'm fuzzy on it. I don't know.
Mr. T, before I throw it to you, I just want to say the reason why I thought that was because I don't know how I feel about it either, but to me, there's room for it. And that's where I would say, because there's a different feeling between, because that's the thing, because listen, like you look back at the Bad Batch and where the reveal of Kanan and his master dying, and in the comic book, they're vastly they're different. Like, the details, their details are different, but the outcome's the same, same planet even. But it's like it's just done way differently, but the outcomes are all still the same as far as we know. So, you know, I want to make that for the record right now. With that being said, I do think that there's a possibility this could be her being like, I'm going to be a Jedi master and I'm going to train you to be this new Jedi. Because when it was revealed that, hey, by the way, I trained Sabine and she's my Padawan, I got the impression, the first thing I thought of was, well, maybe the end of Rebels isn't what we thought. Maybe the end of Rebels actually is a start of Ahsoka being the master of Sabine, because I had no idea that happened. It was a surprise to me. I'm like, well, there's so much they got to fill us in on that they can, you know, with EU books and comics or whatever, which I'm excited about. But I think that it leaves room for that now. You could have that be instead of, because here's a whole reason why I say this is because where in the timeline does it take place? Because I don't know, like, because we don't know, because the impression we got was as soon as the war ended,
it's been 9 years. At this point, it's been 9 years since Ezra took off with Thrawn in the Purgo. 9 years.
Okay. This to me seemed like right after the way that Sabine's narration is. Again, not saying you're right, it's her interpretation, but I think there's room for her, because this gives me the impression that this is right after the war is over and like things are settled down. That to me, it gives me that impression. That's why I'm like, man, like Ahsoka, like this could be the start of them training together. So anyway, I just want to throw it out there. Mr. T, what's your thoughts on that?
So I think we have to understand that when Rebels finished, Dave Filoni had the season 4 and he was like, I have this one window to tell the story that I want to tell. And he had no idea that he was going to be given the keys to a live action streaming series. Like, if anything, he was like, maybe we'll have an animation follow up at some point. That's what I would assume. And so when I watched that, I think that it means absolutely nothing. I think that the scene we get in the first episode, it's just a different interpretation of that final epilogue. I think that when we watch it after Rebels, naturally we assume that, oh, this took place like right after the war is over and we're going, but it doesn't say that. It's not like hardcore, like it happened right here. So for me, it's like, okay, it happened 9 years later. This is happening. There's been a lot of stuff that's happened before this, and now we're going to go, find him. I think it's negligible at best. And I think it's smart of them to have this new interpretation of it, because now you're able to, I think it's a thing that's able to help bridge the two audiences together, those that have seen Rebels and those who haven't, because now both people are at this point where neither one knows exactly what happened in the last several years between these two characters that brought them to this moment. So now everyone's kind of learning together as the show goes on versus, us rebels like, we know, exactly everything that's happened from point A to point B. Now it feels like we were at point A and Rebels, we're at point C at the start of Ahsoka, and there's this whole little, step that we're missing in the middle.
Yeah, that's true. I just think that I'm just very interested to see how that is, because that was because where it takes place and how much they explain the show. There's so much I can't wait to them to dive deep into. Like her automatically, Ahsoka and Sabine's relationship is like fertile ground for great extra EU content, or whatever you want to call it. For books and comics, and I think that, or whatever, what have you. And that's really exciting, to be quite honest. And so we're almost an hour into this. We barely talked about Ahsoka. And I've got a lot. Obviously, we're a little bit later, obviously, but Rosario Dawson, I think, is just a phenomenal Ahsoka. I want to say that off the bat. I think she was great in the series before, and the Mando and in Boba Fett, and she continues her great performance as this character. And I just freaking love her in the show, man. Like I love her. I have some things we'll talk about, but I want to praise her for a minute. I think she is just nailing the character 100%. Great. I love it. And I don't know. I think we are lucky to get someone who can embody the character. I think emotionally, physically, just looks like her. And it just carries herself with a weight that I think many actors of any kind could not do as well as she is. She's such an underrated actress already. And this to me just shows you, I think, the power of her presence on screen, which I think screen presence is not something you have or can develop. You have to have it naturally, and she's got it. So I love her in the show. I got some stuff for her to talk about. But I just want to give you guys some chance to kind of praise our girl Ahsoka.
Go for it, Brian.
No, honestly, I agree with some of what you're saying, Paul. Look, Ben Bamboo got it. I kind of agree with his interpretation here. Ben Bamboo. We're gonna talk about that. We'll talk about that. I think, yes, I think she's a little too stoic, but she needs to be stoic at this point because of how far she's come from what we saw in Clone Wars and Rebels. But it's weird because she wasn't necessarily that stoic in Book of Boba Fett or in Mandalorian. And so now we've kind of made this weird jump to where she is stoic, where I feel like she should have been like this in the other two interpretations in Mando and Book of Boba Fett, just because she's come this far and after everything she's gone through and everything like that. But maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. I don't think she's that. I think she's great. And you guys know me. I didn't like her first outing as Ahsoka. I wasn't a huge fan of it, and she grew on me. She won me over, and so I think she's a good Ahsoka. But yeah, I think what's funny is she's as stoic as I feel like she needs to be, but it's almost like it happened too fast compared to the other two times we've seen her so far.
Mr. T, before I throw it to you and Brian, for you to follow up anything too, I want to add that we're going to talk about her stoicness and her performance and her characterization. I will say that it definitely feels different in some ways. I think that's purposeful, which we'll get into that in a minute. But I do think that she was stoic in those first two episodes. It just wasn't. She's a little more casual in the Book of Boba Fett because she's not fighting. She's among friends. I mean, look at Luke Skywalker, her master's, son, right? It's like, it's just a little different of a environment. And in the Jedi, which is Chef's Kiss, a great episode of The Mandalorian, she's freaking a warrior, man. She's stoic as hell in that. I think she's not as stoic because she's by herself. She's, besides when, you've got, Mandalorian kind of engaging her, it's a little different of an environment. Again, when you compare it to when she's talking to Hera and everyone else on this show. So I do want to push back on that a little bit. I do think we'll address, I think, Bamboo, my nemesis, you could say, on this live stream from the previous episodes, Mr. Bamboo. But I think she's a great casting, and she's great in the show. Mr. T, what say you on Ahsoka and everything we're talking about here?
So I agree with you, Paul, on how she's been in previous episodes. If you watch these episodes, the very beginning, after you watch, very beginning, when she's talking with Hu Yang, and he's like, I follow standard Jedi protocol. And you could see a little bit of that Ahsoka snarkiness come in when she's like, I didn't follow standard Jedi protocol. Whenever she's talking back and forth with him about getting the truth out of Morgan Elsbeth. And then when she walks off her ship and sees, Hera, she's like, General Syndulla. It felt cordial. It felt friendly. To me, the real stoicness happened as soon as Sabine's name pretty much gets brought up. As soon as the stuff with Sabine happens, it's like she goes back into that, crap. Oh my goodness, remembers how, and we see later on, she talks to Hera about how she walked out on Sabine. She was the one who left her. It wasn't Sabine leaving her. It was her leaving Sabine. And there's probably some regret in there, and she's not able to really voice that. She's probably, since that time, Sabine makes the comments that, oh, you're still just living on this ship. And she's like, I go where I'm needed. She's probably, Ahsoka's what, in her mid 40s and hasn't had a relationship and a healthy, really probably like a healthy relationship and a place that she felt at home since she was in her mid-teens when she was an apprentice to Anakin, when she probably felt like she had a home. She's been on the run most of her life. She's been fighting a war, and perhaps that time with Sabine brought out some hope in her. And then for whatever reason, we don't know why, she left. And with that, I think maybe it just zapped her. She's been a wanderer for so long. Perhaps she's just a little burned out and her drive is still there. But sometimes you hit a wall. And I think that Sabine and leaving her was the wall for her. And you see that as soon as they start talking about it, she just kind of, it almost feels like you just see her temperature drop, like she's just there. But I think the beauty of it is going to be, while Sabine may have been the source of that stoicness at the beginning, I think that as we go on, Sabine's also going to be one that brings out some more of that charismatic Ahsoka that we're used to. And I think that's going to be the point of what's happening.
So for full disclosure for everyone watching the show, right before the show, I even told you guys, I said, I have some concerns. Now, Bim Bamboo, I don't think you're wrong, because I said before the show, I want these guys, I gave them kind of I want them to kind of marinate on this a little bit, because I do feel that she's been not too stoic, but she's not showing a lot of range of her emotions as a character. She's not been the most engaging character. And that's a little bit of problematic when you're the main character of the show and it's named after you. That's where my concern is at this point. I'm not saying that she's terrible. I love Ahsoka as a character. I think Rosario Dawson's been fantastic. Right after 2 episodes, though, I will say I'm a little concerned about, like you mentioned here, there's not a lot of variety in her performance, but I do feel that's by design in some way. I'm going to give Dave Filoni full benefit of the doubt here. And Tyler, I thought you nailed it. Like, I feel that's purposeful. It feels like, because even like when she's talking to Hu Yang, on the ship, right? And they're hanging out and she fights all those, great opening scene with her, doing the whole, we'll get into it. But that whole thing when she's talking to Hu Yang here, it is so good. Like, I thought it was so funny that, like, she had a good, like, charismatic, talking with Hu Yang. And like you said, Tyler, as soon as like Sabine enters the picture, she's like, you won't know, like, emotions. Can't have those, like, kind of a thing. So I definitely feel that was a part of it. I don't know if we're projecting that or not either, Tyler, but I do feel that I'm giving Filoni enough credit and benefit of the doubt. And I have faith in him that this is purposeful, because I agree. Like Book of Boba Fett, she's a lot more like smiley. I want to see more of that. But at the same time, this is not that time. Like, there's lots of stuff going on here. So I do feel it's a legitimate concern. I don't want to be like, this is amazing, dude, get out of here. Like, I do feel like if this is what we get the whole series, that will be a problem. And that will be a major criticism of the show.
I think it's confirmed that the point of the Stoic is because of Sabine. When Sabine is talking to Hera, she's like, she doesn't want my help. She doesn't want me around. And Hera just kind of looks, does her motherly things, like, she does. Like, she really does. And Hera could see through that because she's freaking Hera. And she could see through that. And she knows that, you know, she really does want her there. She's just unable to express that. And it's really like so many people when they are put in a position to have to express their emotions out loud and talk about what they're feeling and try to move past it. They put up a wall and they try to separate themselves from it, and they just go crazy with whatever task is in front of them. And I think that's part of why she's like, I go where I'm needed. I'm on the ship. I'm just going mission to mission. This drive, I have to stay busy, because if I stop staying busy, I'm going to suddenly, you know, have to start feeling things.
Right. Yeah. No, that's great. I think, and listen, you cannot like the way she's performing, but I think, Tyler, you did a beautiful job explaining why we're getting this. And it's honestly helped me legitimately. I'm legitimately, like, I feel better even now after you explaining that. I'm like, man, I feel like really good now. Cause I had concerns. I think they're still kind of there, but you've made me feel way more confident in where her direction as a character is going. So
she doesn't hesitate. Like, she doesn't hesitate at the end whenever Sabine says, I'm ready. Like, the next scene is her picking her up on the ship and calling her Padawan. Like MB Wilson said, just giving her like a little smile at the end. Like, you could tell, like, okay, you're starting to see, like, this is what she's really wanted, and she's feeling more comfortable.
There you go. Okay. Right on. So that you made me feel much better. Everyone, this is great. Thank you. I think this is great. People, you're in the live chat. If you're new to the live chat, go tell us your rankings of both the episodes out of 10. Hit the like button, comment, let us know what you think of the show. Please go. Couple more things here and we'll wrap up, which we still have some things to get to. Morgan Elsbeth, right? Am I saying her name right? Okay. I loved her in the Jedi. Full disclosure, loved her in that shirt. That episode was fantastic. That actress just eats up scenery. I love her. I know she's a character actor, and I've seen her in different stuff, but I can't remember off the top of my head. But she's very familiar to me. I gotta tell you guys right now, when it was revealed that she was a freaking Night Sister, I was like, God damn, because I love the Night Sisters. They were one of my favorite things in Clone Wars that was revealed, that was developed through the Clone Wars. A very interesting and unique take of the series. And, you know, I gotta tell you, I loved it. And her reveal as a Sith, as a Night Sister, I thought was such a beautiful, like, twist I didn't see coming, that I'm like, I'm all in. And when she's doing the whole, that whole magic thing where it's that thing's overhead of them or whatever. I thought I had a picture of it, but I guess I don't. I'll get it here in a second. But man, like, I lost it. I thought it was amazing. I think she's a great character. Making her a Night Sister, I thought, was a chef's kiss. Beautiful touch. So any thoughts on this one?
Yeah, I mean, we didn't know that when she appeared in the Jedi and Mandalorian. We didn't know that then, and it's kind of a cool touch. And you're right, when she started to use that Dathomirian magic, you know, for the first thing, it's that little green flame sticking up out of the pedestal. I was like, oh my God, this is great. I had no idea, you know, and so I think it's cool that they added him to live action. It doesn't, like, it surprised me to find out she was a Night Sister, but it doesn't surprise me that Filoni would drop a Night Sister into one of these shows.
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, I didn't notice it in the trailer right away. I think it was actually Brian who brought up the idea that she might be a Night Sister, because we were talking about, like, some of the trailers, and he's like, pretty sure it's you, Brian, like, did you notice the green flame? Like, you see that? And I hadn't seen it at first. And then, of course, you know, right from the get-go, boom, like, Night Sister.
Yeah, no, I do. So you guys are all into it then?
I love it.
Oh, absolutely.
I think it's great.
Okay. Mr. Bin Bamboo,
and also the fact, you know, we talk about this a little bit with, you know, like Jedi Survivor and how Marin and Cal talk about their relationship. You know, it's weird that a Night Sister travels with a Jedi. We still don't know what's going on with Baylan and Shin, but it's cool that they're all kind of working together like that, especially considering the Night Sisters you know, the way they felt about Sith and, you know, anybody who wielded a lightsaber at that point. You know, Grievous came and wiped out, you know, the Night Sisters in this one part of Dathomir. And it's like, you know, Marin told Cal, you know, a warrior, an armored warrior wielding one of these showed up one day and killed all my, you know, sisters. And then now all of a sudden there's a Night Sister that's working with Balin and Shin. I think it's pretty cool. I think it's a cool dynamic.
Yeah, and Ben Bamboo, I really wanted to say real quick, it's not justifying. It's just what the story gives us, what works for us. It doesn't work for you. That's cool. So we can, as my favorite gift to put is agree, disagree. So I really loved, Morgan Elsbeth's character a lot. And man, when we got this moment where, you know, she's like, all of a sudden we'll bring up the new galaxy, which because when we talked about this on the before the show, I said I thought she was talking about the unknown regions, and people in the chat, let me know. Do you guys think she was talking about the unknown regions?
I think that's what we've all assumed.
That's what I thought. Yeah, that's what I thought.
I did not go there, to be honest. Like, I was fully going beyond whatever we had previously thought of in Star Wars. I was like, this is going to be something like bonkers, that this is going to be something completely unexpected, because I always viewed the unknown regions and some of that chaotic space that's out there as not necessarily venturing off into a brand new galaxy, but more of like, that's the edge of the known galaxy, and it's just difficult to navigate that area, because like there's Exegol that is, they have to especially navigate with a wayfinder and everything. But I didn't view that as like, oh, they're traveling to a, this felt to me like this was something from an ancient species came to this galaxy, intergalactic travel. That's why they're having to get this giant eye of Sion with a big old, she said the final hyperdrive is being installed. So there's multiple hyperdrives that are going to take
hyperdrives off of SSDs. Like, yeah, it's,
and so that's why I think that, you know, they're going bigger and bolder than ever before. And I don't know how big of an, like, what, I don't think we're going to get into what this galaxy has in store for them as much as we're just going to maybe get a glimpse of it. And then Thrawn and everything is going to be there. It could have, this is like what my big brain theory could be of like, this could have implications for future movies and projects set beyond Rise of Skywalker. Like, if this becomes like a canon thing of there is another galaxy with another group out there, you know, maybe they have hostile intentions. You can go there back and forth. It just even opens up the world so much more. But on a smaller level, it would just be like, oh, it makes sense why no one has been able to find Thrawn and Ezra, because they were taken by the Purgle to somewhere that's not, you know, no one's able to navigate to, and no one had even thought of trying to get to. And so that to me just makes, you know, more sense. It could open up a whole, you know, can of stuff though for, you know, future stories. Like, who knows?
Absolutely does. I mean, think about this. Is the Force only in like the Star Wars galaxy, or does the Force exist in every galaxy? You know what I mean?
It should exist in every galaxy. If it doesn't, come on.
Right. And so that means every single galaxy is going to have their own versions of, you know, Jedi or monks or whatever that can wield it, or, you know, whatever like that. It opens up so many cans of worms.
If there's civilized people there too, we don't, or beings. I mean, I think what it does is it gives you an out to put Ahsoka, Sabine, and Ezra out of the sequel trilogy era and be in their own world, if you will, in some ways. And then you can start bridging those things together after the sequel trilogy, like the Rey and the Rey film. Maybe you have more, you know, connections to the Mandoverse or Filoniverse, where I hate calling those things, but you get what I'm saying. They'll marrying those things together. There's really good elements there you could do. And I think that to me is what makes it really fascinating. And I actually, when you told me, Tyler, that it was a different galaxy, I went, dude, I don't know how I feel about that. But after thinking about it after a while, while we're talking, I honestly haven't stopped thinking about it. I'm really into it. I think it's a great idea. And I think what it could do is it definitely takes those characters away, and they can have their own war that we don't know about. And then we're gonna have that with Ahsoka, and then how when Rey will have, it's like almost like two separate massive things are happening at once, and then the Jedi Order won't truly be able to come together until these two massive things are defeated. That's just, you know what I'm saying? And then now they can marry them together again with Ahsoka's, whatever's left over from this whole thing. It gives a really interesting out of not having to be involved in the other war that's going on, because let's be real, it's a big galaxy. If there's two galaxies, there's no wonder that they weren't involved, kind of a thing, right? So it's really fascinating. I'm actually like it better that it's not the unknown regions. And you bring up a good point that the unknown regions is different because everyone knows it exists. It just sucks to try to navigate it. That's why people don't do it. So I do. That's a good reminder of that, and I do love this Easter egg that I was not anticipating. So I'm all about this new galaxy. So any last comments before we move on a little bit more, and we'll wrap up.
Before, I do want to hit on this. It was Morgan Elsbeth arrives on CTOS to do the whole Night Sister thing. Up to that point, and I thought this was maybe Ray Stevenson's best delivered line. They're talking. They're talking about, what finding Thrawn could mean, but she's talking about how he's calling to her, and she shows the pathway to the galaxy and speaks of it in her terms. And, Ray Stevens like, oh, are you talking about like the pathway to Peridia or whatever? She's like, everyone has, there's myth and legends for a name for it. And he's like, that's what the Jedi, children at the temple used to call it. And suddenly he starts looking a little bit different, and he's like, you could see the wheels turning of like, what could, maybe this is exactly what he's been searching for, or something new is happening. And that's when Elsbeth leaves, and that's when Shin says, what does finding Thrawn mean? And ultimately it's like, for us, power beyond, your wildest, what you've ever dreamed, beyond what you've ever dreamed. And I'm just wondering if, there are some like legends or tales that the Jedi have said that have existed of this path to this other galaxy and what lies beyond it. And he's heard those at the temple and just assumed they were, like he said, fairy tales, like not real. Right. And now he's confronted with the fact that some of that stuff that I heard, there's some grains of truth to that. And I think it both scares him, but also intrigues
him. Okay, Brian, before you go in, I want to ask you, because and you guys both, goes to both of you, I don't know if I didn't hear it right, if my ears are bad, but what exactly did she say? Was he asking her that was a fairy tale? Give me the specifics of exactly what she was saying, and about this place that he said was a fairy tale. What did she say? And what was his response?
It was the path that when it showed through the path, and she's talking about the pathway to get to this other galaxy and get to him, something. And he says something like, you speak of the pathway to Peridia. And she goes, people have their own names for it. And he goes, well, the children of the Jedi used to speak of it, but it's, you speak of fairy tales and dreams, basically. And so when she's talking about this path and Thrawn being able to speak to her through time and space. And so my thought was similarly what you said, Paul, like it makes sense if there's this whole separate thing going on involving this other galaxy, because if there is a group of people or Thrawn's, allied with them or something that thousands of years ago were able to travel to this galaxy without anyone really being aware of it, have this technology to set it up, this ancient temple to point the way, who knows what they're capable of, who knows what their intentions are. And Thrawn's been there a long time, and he's probably has something cooked up. Or it could just be simple, like Thrawn's exiled over there and he's like found some old technology. He's like, hey, get me out of here. I got to get back to my boys or something,
Right.
But it was just, I don't know. It may have been a throwaway line, like the pathway, just to kind of have some sort of like
gravitas to
Jedi lore to get you kind of interested. But to me, it just felt like a little bit more like there is some sort of legend or Jedi tale that, has to do with what they're doing that clearly has him thinking power beyond his wildest dreams, because why else would they be after Thrawn? Like, why would they be curious to go after Thrawn at all? What could he possibly have that Baylan and Shin couldn't already do? They can wield the Force already. They're clearly just mercenaries for hire. I don't think he's interested in leading some army he doesn't seem interested in war or anything like that.
That we know of, anyway.
That we know of, because he was like for some like war, but I don't know. It was just
but he wants power though.
He does want power, but it didn't seem to me like conquest was necessarily on his mind. So I'm just curious what he's aware of that we don't know yet.
Yeah, and we'll wrap up here in a few minutes. Brian, I think you have to jump off. Was there anything you wanted to wrap up?
Oh no, I'm stoked for next week, and I can't wait. I can't wait to sit here next week and talk about. I think the next episode is like 31 minutes or something like that, so it's kind of a shorter one. But yeah, I know. So we'll see how it goes. But yeah, I'm gonna have to hop off. It's already pretty late where I'm at.
All right, I'm sorry. Well, I don't.
No worries,
Mr. T. Yeah. So listen, we'll see you soon, man. We'll wrap up here in a few minutes.
Maybe next week will be that Clone Wars flashback prediction come true for you, Brian.
We'll see. I'm still got my fingers crossed, man. I'm telling you, it's gonna happen. It's gonna happen.
Right on.
All right, I'll yak at you guys later.
All right, see you, man.
Later.
So anyway, yeah. So we'll kind of wrap up here in a few minutes, but yeah, I thank you. So Peridia, that's what I kept saying. There is something they've already given a title to, right? Peridia. What is that? Like, that to me is very fascinating. That to me is, I think, one of the most intriguing aspects of the show is that what does that mean? And Mr. Wilson brought up a great point. He said, when she says Thrawn is calling to me through time and space, that is an interesting comment. I mean, maybe we're reading too much into it, Tyler, but what do you think of that?
Time and space. I think it all just depends. We have no idea what's going on the other side of this galaxy, where Thrawn is, where Ezra is. It could be as simple as Ezra's helping him tap into the Force he's using Ezra to tap into the Force to communicate with someone. But I think that's beyond, someone's physical capabilities through the Force. To me, it's going to be some sort of technology / Force mystic craziness that is going on over there. That we're going to find out. I think that doing this whole other galaxy thing is inherently risky when it comes to Star Wars, because it could open up a lot of, a whole can of worms that I don't know if any creative mind is capable of handling well. But I also say it is really fun to see Star Wars taking a bold risk like this. And if someone's going to do it and do it well, I think Filoni is the guy to do it in terms of telling the story.
Well, and I think you bring up a great point. I think there's a difference between taking a risk storyline wise that knows the mythology. I'll just say that. I don't want to get too deep into what I'm trying to imply here, but I think the more you understand this universe, the better it is you can take those risks. And a Filoni, and I think even Jon Favreau at this point, in my opinion, can take those risks. I mean, Jon Favreau's already done that, and people can argue like, it's been hit or miss with Jon Favreau. I think Jon Favreau is not doing a bad job at all. So that's just me. But you're right. I think if any one person is going to be able to do something this crazy, it's Dave Filoni. And let's be real, he brought in basically time travel. And it works. And I would have never in a million years been able to tell you, I would have believed that you could have time travel in Star Wars and have it work, some kind of aesthetic work that way. And the World Between Worlds is a way to do that. And it's pretty impressive that, in my opinion, that he's able to do that. So again, that's just my opinion, but
could you put MB Wilson's point on there? Cause I actually had similar thoughts on that. Yes. So I thought, what if it is something else or someone else that's calling to her to try to open up this pathway and bridge the two galaxies for them to get over? I thought, it's perfectly possible. My only thing with that is that would kind of at that point maybe make Thrawn just kind of not really the big bad villain that he's supposed to be, and it would take away from the fact that he's supposed to be this villain. And I think that Star Wars needs to have him as kind of the overarching villain for this whole big production they're doing. If they do yet another, like Thrawn's the bad guy here, he's off, and there's another big bad, it would just feel like a little bit too much for me. But I would love if Thrawn is aligned with someone that is able to call out to her possibly, or something like that.
or even like, what if, like, align is a great word, because what if he's working in conjunction with other people, like a dark Jedi, and he's like, and he's using that person to reach out to her. Does that make sense? Because
Yes.
it is interesting that he can reach out to her that way, because like, we don't, again, go back to our whole argument before, right, Tyler, about being force sensitive or whatever, right? Like, if all Thrawn's force sensitive, everyone's force sensitive, kind of a thing. It is interesting to think about that idea, that is it Thrawn reaching out to her, or is it maybe he having help? I like the idea of him being, because like you said, he's too smart, in my opinion, as a character, to be have someone oversee him in that capacity and not have like his own like agency. Does that make sense? Because it felt very much like in Rebels, especially. I can't really speak for the Legends because I didn't read a lot of Legend stuff myself, at least the novels. I'm a comic guy. But it feels very much his own agency within the Empire, based on the books I've read and the comics I've read or whatever. And Rebels, he kind of does his own thing almost. So it doesn't really make sense that he'd be like, yes. It's like, it's almost like he was using the Emperor to get his people in the new canon, more of like, oh, you're my master. Like, it never gave me that impression. So
if anything, I think Thrawn is someone who's not going to make the same mistake twice. And the mistake that he makes in Rebels is it's less a mistake, but more of an inability to account for the major wild card that is the Force. And he's had all this time to think about
the Force,
what that means,
right?
The Force, what that means. How can I eliminate this wild card from my future plans? Because he had the Rebels crew, he had Lothal dead to rights, but because of an ability that Ezra has to tap into the Force and connect with creatures, he lost. And so I'm wondering, this way he's calling out, is this his sort of, counterattack or countermeasure to not control the Force, but at least account for it in some way, to have some sort of contingency if crazy Force stuff just starts, happening suddenly.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. All right, do some quick hitters. Let's get out of here. We can't go on without talking about, obviously, Hera. I mean, let's be real. I mean, we gotta. I'll be honest. I wasn't enamored with her initially. After a couple watches, I got more used to her. But I watched it with my new neighbor, who's a big Star Wars fan, and her husband came over. They're both Star Wars fans, but it seems like she's pretty she knew everything like we were talking about. I was very impressed, actually.
That's awesome.
Yeah, it was awesome. And we're hopefully we're watching with Star Wars with them every week, like this now. And one of the cool things I thought she said that really, because I was like, I'm not feeling this, Elizabeth Weinstead as Hera, I just can't get behind it. And she goes, you know what it is? She goes, it's the eyes. I went,
yeah,
that's it. It's her eyes are way too small for like I was like, that's it. It just wasn't registering with me. But I will say, I thought after I watched it all again last night, which again, so good. So good. These two shows are just so rewatchable. It's ridiculous. I got way more behind her portrayal as Hera, and I'm now totally cool with it. It took me a little bit of time to get warmed up to it, but anyway, what's your take on Hera?
I absolutely love MEW as Hera. I thought she was spectacular. I will say the same thing. It took me a minute, and it was not because her performance wasn't great and she didn't portray Hera well.
I agree. Yeah.
I think it's literally just as simple as it took me a minute to adjust from the animated version of that character to the live action version, just because of the differences in portraying those characters you have to take when you're going from animation to live action. And for me, once I felt it, when she got in the Phantom and she starts, chirping back and forth with Chopper and, their banter, that's when it felt like coming home again for me. Like, I felt like, okay, as soon as she said, keep your lid on, Chop, like me at that moment, I was like, okay, Hera is back in control. And now I'm good. I think it was literally just one of those, because it is a bit awkward sometimes when you see your favorite character. It was similar to when Ahsoka first came into The Mandalorian. It took me a watch or two of that episode to feel like, okay, this is Ahsoka. Like, it just took me a minute, when the voice is a little different, the appearance isn't quite the same. It just takes a minute. And I think once your mind is able to start letting go of that and be, a little bit more in the moment, it really makes the world a difference. And so for me, that moment was just when she's with Chopper on the Phantom, and boom. I thought she was great though.
Yeah, and Chopper was great. He was a great like carryover. I thought I was really. I'm not a big Chopper fan. He annoyed me a lot in Rebels. I felt like it's just too much, at times. But at the same time, I do like the character. I think it's too over the top for me. That being said. Fair. I do think that his portrayal in this was fun, and you nailed it on the head when she's interacting with Chopper and just calls him Chop, but it wasn't that one that did it for me. It was the other one where she's like, I don't know where you put it. You're the last one to see it. Like they're having that open. And he's like, oh,
I didn't go through your stuff.
Yeah, dude. That was that to me felt like total Rebels, and that's when I started getting. That's when I finally wasn't as bothered by it the first time, and when we watched it and I saw that again, I'm like, oh, it feels so perfect. So. I give her a lot of credit. Weinstein's a fantastic actress. I mean, she's so good.
I love what Dave did too with just the portrayal of this character, because we have Ahsoka and Sabine who are clearly going through something. And so he made it clear that Hera, she is still the exact same Hera that you love and remember from Rebels. She is a constant. She is still, who you want her to be. And I think it's important to make sure that, not all of your characters need to be going through this deep, thing right now. Not to say Hera's character won't develop as the show goes on, but having that familiarity of who she is and being comfortable with that, I think that really helps a lot with the audience, especially as there is some debate over Ahsoka right now.
No, again, I thought you've done a great job explaining. I think, and really, and I mean this too. You really have helped me get more behind where they're going with Ahsoka, because I kind of already knew that, but I think you really drove home my concerns a little bit away. So I'm really thankful for that. And I do agree with you 100%. Hera is 100% her own character. And you do see, because you get, think about this, people, you can't have there's got to be some conflict, some self-conflict for the main character. It can't just be like, I got to destroy the bad guy. There's got to be self-conflict somewhere. That's storytelling 101. And I think by having, and you also, because you have, you're bringing this is Rebels 2.0, right? Well, you have to give Sabine also a character, flaw, and there's by making her the apprentice of Ahsoka, you then all of a sudden make them both have conflict within each other that you can build off over the season, and it can have, instead of just being like, we're together on this, right? Like, and it gets very boring that way. You've now created self-conflict between these two characters and have it be try to make it interesting, because they have. I mean, I'm totally bought into this. That's why I think the stoicness, with what you're saying, Tyler, makes sense. And that's why Hera makes sense, that she balances all of that out, that she doesn't have to be a different person, because she can kind of be the bridge and that medium, what's the word? The arbitrator, if you will, between the two of them. So I feel like that middleman idea for her between those two characters is a great way to play off them and get, to get different emotions out of them, which I think we're going to get, hopefully. Again, if if Ahsoka stays the same way in these two episodes, and I think you would agree with this too, I don't want to put words in your mouth, but you can tell me to shut the hell up. But if they just do that for the whole season, I think you would agree that was a mistake. If that's the way they're going to portray her, I would assume you would say that was a mistake.
Oh, absolutely. And I don't think that she will be like that for the whole season.
I agree.
Now, I think that people need to remember that, this is not the same person you saw in Clone Wars. She's not suddenly gonna, I don't think, be running headfirst, going with her, little voice, just like, come on, let's go. She's not gonna be like, that. But
a complete 180.
We're gonna see some more emotion from her, because you also, they have someone like Rosario Dawson playing it that has incredible range as an actress, and they're gonna let her make that character her own and display what she has. I just think as her relationship with Sabine develops, maybe as they, start to learn more about Ezra's whereabouts, what could, be happening. The moment could be, fingers crossed, when the breaking point could be, fingers crossed, if we get Hayden as a Force ghost to talk with her at some point. That could be the crux of this all, where he's able to express his pain over what happened. They're having this moment, and he's the one who ultimately helps her let go and process that. I think that would be a beautiful way to write it. And That's kind of what I've been hoping for as soon as we saw the stoic stuff is like, could Anakin once again come in and as her master be the one to reach her unlike anyone else is going to be able to?
Hold on. Tyler, before we wrap up, I just got to say this. Can you imagine in this universe, in our universe, right?
Mm-hmm.
If we got a Force Ghost talking to Ahsoka before we got a Force Ghost talking to Anakin talking to Luke.
That
can you imagine? Can you imagine? Oh,
I'm actually I think it makes more sense than you think it should, because I think that for Luke, he actually did get to talk with his father. He did get to speak with him at the end, very briefly, albeit very briefly. He did get to speak with him. Ahsoka's last interaction with Anakin was him as Vader, telling her that you will die, and I'm trying to kill her. So we don't know that if they've spoken or not since, or anything like that. So I don't know. And then obviously there is the brief scene from Shadow of the Sith where they do speak to each other, but I don't know. I think that. I would be surprised. No, I would just be shocked if Ahsoka is this, dreary, stoic figure. I think it's all purposeful. She's been through an incredible amount, with her relationship with Sabine. She's been probably more than any character we have at this point in the timeline in terms of someone who's been through it all, seen it all, been betrayed by the people she cares about most. The only person in her life that hasn't really betrayed her or, left her has been Rex. If you think about it, just given what happened with all the Jedi, turning her back on her family that fell, she's been at war ever since. So it makes sense that she has abandonment issues. Oh yeah, Shadow of the Sith. I got my copy back here somewhere.
Well, the reason I bring this up is this is probably the only time we've seen
with Luke and Anakin.
Just no spoil. This is a good book, by the way. I actually like this book a lot. But
I feel like that's not a spoiler. Like that was they published an excerpt for the book, and like that as a way to get people to go buy it. And, like, that was fair. Part of the excerpt they published.
That I don't mean to be rude, but I don't want to be rude when you're talking. I wanted to just bring that up. We do have some kind of canon thing for Anakin, but on screen, if we got that, I don't think you're necessarily wrong, but I think the universe would blow up if that happened. To be honest,
I just disagree because Anakin means more to Ahsoka as a mentor figure than he does to Luke. And that's why I think, and you're going to hate me, that's why I think that when Rian Johnson said he brought Yoda in for The Last Jedi instead of Hayden, because who was the mentor, who was the teacher for Luke? It was Yoda. And I think that's fair. We're having something here, Luke's mentors and teachers were Obi-Wan and they were Yoda. Like, sure, Anakin has wisdom he can impart to him, or they could have and develop their familial bond.
Yeah.
But I also view this Force Ghost stuff as a way that they're able to impart teachings, wisdom, knowledge, mentorship, and when they need it most. And I would argue there's no one Ahsoka needs more than her master. Like
that's a good point.
Her older brother.
I think you're on the money. All right, last couple quick things. We already talked about. We got to talk about our boy Hugh Wang for a quick second. That guy might be the MVP. Of the secret MVP. He was incredible, and I just want to say this really quick. Everything he said, gold. Loved it. He was maybe my favorite character. I don't know. He might be my favorite character. I thought he was incredible. I love Hugh Wang. Loved him in the Clone Wars. Having him come back was a surprise, but a welcome one, right? I'm just gonna say here right now, I talked about how there's fertile ground for Sabine and Ahsoka's relationship now, amongst other things that he's created already. With besides, there's tons of stuff to talk about, right? Hugh Wang is one of them as well. The fact that we've got this guy and there is a great comic. I hope it's a comic because I'm a comic guy. I'd rather have a comic than a book. Sorry, y'all. But I want a comic where Ahsoka goes and saves Hugh Wang somehow. Like that's, I want to see that story because that to me seems like a badass story. Anything on Hugh Wang?
I just think it's cool, like that Hugh Wang survived. Like, he's still here. 75% original parts. yeah, he's a fun droid. David Tennant is an amazing job as
Yes.
voicing that, and I love how Star Wars does such a good job of making every droid feel incredibly different, just and have their own personalities. And he's
Like
I feel
people.
I feel like he's this perfect mix of like this 3PO and K2SO. He's sassy, full of knowledge, like a depth of knowledge, and able to communicate a ton. But he also has this, this sassiness to him. And I really hope and think that we're going to see him in the Mangold film that comes out, at some point, which is like the Dawn of the Jedi stuff.
You think that movie's coming out still?
Oh, it's 100% coming out.
I'll give you a hard time. I'll believe it when I see it, but I hope it happens.
I think that they're going to move forward with that. Now the strike's going to push everything back, change things.
I don't mean I apologize. I apologize.
No, yeah, it's going to happen, and if it is going to happen, like, it makes sense that he's been around 20,000 years. I think we could see him helping forge the first lightsabers.
I didn't even think about that. That's an incredible idea. What if he's like the original droid? Oh my god!
Because it says in the Timelines book, like, it talks about Huang's like 20,000 years old, and in the timeline for Dawn of the Jedi thing, they were like 20,000 years ago. So it would, like, makes, I don't know why they threw those two random dates in there if it wasn't like at least saying it's a possibility.
Bro, I love it. Okay, last two things and we'll get out of here. And these are quick hitters. By the way, this shot, incredible. I just want to say that for the record. Any of y'all who are like me and Dark Empire fans, you saw those E-Wings right here? Oh. Holy moly, I lost my SH, if you know what I'm talking about, y'all. This blew my goddamn mind. And this is why it pisses me off when I think about the sequel trilogy, when you could have done this so easily and it looks fantastic on screen and you couldn't do it. It was really mad. And I'm just going to cry about it because I just don't understand how they could have done it in the first place. I love
it is really funny how even in The Rise of Skywalker, like, one of my favorite moments from the sequel trilogy is when the fleet appears, yes! That Lando gets, and you see like pretty much any type of ship from all of Star Wars. You can like look through there. I can't ever find, like, there's not a single like E-Wing in there. It's just one of those funny things for like people who love like legend stuff and everything. And
this looks incredible.
It's just like, it does look awesome. It's a cool ship.
Good. They look amazing. It's like, God, this is not rocket science, people. These, like, Cam Kennedy, who freaking designed this thing, is incredible artist. Why couldn't you just, guys? Like, here's a problem, and it just goes from JJ to Rian Johnson. This is not like this is to both of them. They're just arrogant and not arrogant. They were confident, overconfident in themselves. Like, oh, I can do it, but this is just a design. Blah, blah, blah. It's like when you could have just, if they were like smart and looked at all this material that they had, they could be like, that looks fantastic. Let's use that. Let's use that. Because like people are whatever, right? It just baffles me. But Dave Filoni's like, oh yeah, we should use E-Wings. Those are fun, and like they look incredible. Like they are literally from the page, Tyler, to screen, and it looks incredible. So anyway, I digress. Last thing we'll see before we're out. This has been a blast. I had a great time. Lothcats, I want one. I need one. This was like maybe the unsung hero besides Huang. Oh my god, this is like a runaway hit, right? I mean, come on.
I like the animals. I've always liked animals in Star Wars. I'm not like as giddy over it as everyone else, but I will say the thing I liked most was when they had like the little scene in the field and you see a couple of them pop up. Like their heads little pop up, they make their little noise, because it did just remind me of, there's so many like quiet moments in Rebels where there's just a few Lothcats popping up like that in the meadow or just running around. And I do love it when Star Wars does take the time to have those softer moments like that, and it just was like just a nice like reset when it's and then I just love Sabine, that she's just like adopted this random Lothcat basically.
Yeah, no, oh god, I love this Lothcat so much. They
look great too.
Yeah, I want to say too, there's a Muppetness that Filoni knows how to incorporate. He's a fan of the Muppets, and like not just the Muppets, but the Jim Henson style. And like you look at the Bendu, right? It's very, it's an animation. It's very much in that Jim Henson design kind of phase. I get the same feeling from this Lothcat. Total like Jim Henson-ish like design, the way it's the mouth especially just feels Jim Henson. I love it. It looks beautiful. Yeah, it's great. So Ahsoka, we did it, man. We killed this thing. I love Ahsoka. this might be my favorite, maybe my favorite opening. Like my buddy Kyle from the Saga Continues, that my other podcast, he kind of said like this might be the best Star Wars opener of the series, at least, you know. And I'm like, you know, he might be right. Like he just might be right, because that first episode it's paced incredibly well. And we've gone almost 2 hours and we've not even talked about the music. Just one last thing I want to say. And this is so stupid because Kevin Kiner, and I don't know if is it Kiner Brothers? Is it a son? I don't know who it is, but the Kiner music in this, I'm just going to say right now, my favorite, I think the music overall in The Mandalorian season 1 and 2 is more creative, and it pushes Star Wars in a different direction that I think Star Wars needed to do after Williams. And it probably is, I think, at its peak of Star Wars creativeness, it may be the best since Williams. That being said, Ahsoka's 1 and 2 episodes, these first 2 episodes, Tyler, the music was so good. And Kiner's been doing Star Wars for so long that he knew exactly what to do. And I never felt more at home because of the music, but other than Williams. And that's just the truth. Other than
felt
Williams,
just like watching anything out of a saga film when it came to the music. It truly felt like that. And I was like, you know what? We have supposedly three Star Wars movies that are on the slate for the next, 7-8 years. And if anyone's going to take up the mantle from John Williams to do the music and the scores for those movies, I feel like this is Kevin Kiner's time. And he's done the animation. He's done, Clone Wars, Rebels. Ahsoka has been brilliant so far. Even some of the simple things has been really just mesmerizing and lifts every scene up to an even new level. And I hope he continues to get more opportunities in Star Wars, because he like you said, he nails it. Loved it. We could have an whole episode just talking about the music at some point, because it's that good.
Yeah, it is great. So anyway, I just want to say really quick, thank you everyone for chatting. Been amazing. Tyler, you've been awesome. Why don't you pimp your stuff out, man? Where can people find you at? All that stuff.
Twitter X at TyBrad5. That's
X,
whatever you want to call it.
I
did a lot of stuff for our Ahsoka countdown with Star Wars Newsnet. I'm finishing my Tales of Light and Life review this weekend for High Republic. And then I will be getting back into the Star Wars comics, probably a little bit heavier in September. But I am reading Kira's book now next, Crimson Climb. I'm a little nervous about that one, but excited nonetheless.
Yeah, I haven't read. I don't read books anymore. I just don't have the time, it seems like. But we'll talk. We'll talk more about this here in a second here when we're off air. But anyway, those for really appreciate everyone coming on. You all please follow me on Twitter at Herman22 with 2 N's, aka P Thug. But most of all, I'd love for you all to, if you guys love comic books, please go over, or learn about comic books, go over to the Comic Binge YouTube channel, subscribe, hit the like buttons, go comment, leave love notes, all that jazz. Really appreciate it. I have a whole dedicated Star Wars place for this that is you can go and check out. I just did an Heir to the Empire adaptation, the first book, not the whole series, just the first book by Timothy Zahn that was done back in the 90s. And that was a great episode. I had Rob for making Star Wars on it. And he was breaking that down from the art standpoint. It was incredible. Loved it. There's tons of great stuff on there. I think so for comic books. So go check that out. Really appreciate it. Go subscribe, and really appreciate everyone coming on here. And, I'll let Tyler let this take us out here. Okay. So why don't say goodbye to everyone, and thanks for joining us. And we'll be back next week. Right, my friend?
Yes, sir. For light and life, my friends.
All right. We'll see y'all all later. All right. See you there. Bye, y'all. Bye.